Welcome to Milking the Franchise, the Cash Cow Chronicles, the podcast where me and Chris watch...
Who you gonna call?
Movies?
Movies. Spooky kind.
Podcasting makes me feel good.
Oh, perfect.
How's
The
it go?
first 30 seconds of this are going to be unlistenable, but we're happy that you're here to talk about Bustin', to talk about ghosts.
That's it.
And mostly those two things. We're going to keep it limited to those things.
Ghosts and Bustin', yeah.
Mm-hmm. Baby.
Chris, what is this show about?
Thanks for putting us on. We are a little show. We like to kind of live in movie franchises. So right now we're working our way through the Ghostbusters movie, and each episode of the show is going to focus on one installment from the movie franchise. And then at the end of the show, we also like to read books and play video games and watch TV shows and just kind of whatever other, in this case, Ghostbusters stuff we can find. We like to kind of watch that stuff, read that stuff, and bring that to you as well. And what are we doing today, Tanner?
All right, we watched Ghostbusters 2, second movie in the franchise.
You know that because the ghost is holding up two fingers on the movie poster.
Oh my god, I thought he was just giving him bunny ears. Is that wrong?
What a prankster. Speaking
of which, I noticed that in the movie, the characters, they have the logo on their arm, and they have the number 2, like the Ghostbusters 2 logo, on their sleeve, which makes no sense.
I wanted to talk to you about that. It makes no sense. Yes.
Why we're talking about the logo, it makes no sense.
Yeah. It's still a company. It's not like a sequel to a company. So it doesn't make any sense on the side of the car. It's on the side of the X-01. Anyway, we'll get to Ghostbusters 2 in a minute. Before we do, we've got a little bit of housekeeping to do at the top of the show.
Everybody loves housekeeping too.
They do. That's how
everyone loves to clean.
Stays kept or something. Yeah.
Well, that's why they pay me to do the housekeeping. And by that, I assume you mean reading the survey from last week?
Yes. And also just checking in. How you doing, Tanner?
Oh, I'm good. Yeah. I played a lot of video games this week for Ghostbusters, and there's so many more. There's so many more to play.
Great.
Looking forward to it. Yeah, enjoyed the movie, enjoyed watching the movie at least. I got some things to say. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing good. I've got a book, kind of a history of the Ghostbusters franchise that I tried to get through, but it was 400 pages. So I got about the first half.
Oh my God.
And I will hopefully, but it's super interesting, and there's a ton of interesting little tidbits that I got from reading through that. So I'm excited to share that stuff with you at the end.
This isn't like a novelization. This is a history.
No, this is an unofficial history of Ghostbusters that kind of breaks down all the main players and all the little anecdotes from behind the scenes. So
it's not Tobin's Spirit Guide, is it?
I have not gotten to Tobin's Spirit Guide yet. That's it's coming. It's coming.
It is a real thing. I guess they released it.
Yeah.
But so on the show we make surveys that go along with the movie, and ask you to make jokes and play along with us, ask you some real questions about the movie as well. And we have one from the first movie right now. We're going to go over from Ghostbusters 1.
Right on.
You ready? All right.
As ready as I'm going to be.
I asked, and shout out to the Reddit, by the way, the Ghostbusters subreddit. We got 12 responses, Chris.
That might be a new record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Highlander was close, maybe, with 10.
Okay.
Once or twice. Yeah. But thanks again.
The Riddick Reddit, that's hard to say, was also pretty good to us. So shouts out to all three of those communities. What do we got this week, though? Yeah.
Yeah. So the first question we asked was favorite non-Ghostbuster. We got the winner is Lewis, of course, Rick Moranis. That's what I voted for.
Me too.
Then
Such a great role.
Janine with a close second.
Interesting.
With, 4 votes. Yeah. What else did we get? Nobody voted for the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. I'm surprised, but everyone else got 1 vote.
Okay. I'm a little surprised Sigourney Weaver didn't get more.
I mean, I love Sigourney Weaver. I love Alien and Aliens and all that, but she doesn't have a lot to do in this movie.
She is kind of the straight man in this movie, I guess.
Totally.
So,
yeah. So much so that I forgot she was in both movies. For some reason, I thought she was just in one. All right. Dumbest made-up scientific terminology. The overall winner was the telemetry tracker that NASA uses to identify dead pulsars in deep space.
Love it.
That was.
I don't
feel
love
like that was yours.
I hated that. Yeah, but.
Oh, the Ghostbusters 2 upped the terminology, didn't they? I didn't.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't write enough of it down, but there's a lot. And then we asked you to make.
Yeah. Maybe it's because I've seen this movie more, but it didn't catch me quite as often in this movie as it did in the first one. Like that stuff was.
Maybe I'm wrong. I heard some that seemed even more outlandish, maybe, but maybe not as often.
Sure.
All right. Then we asked you guys to make up your own dumb scientific terms for busting ghosts.
Oosh.
Zack Attack. Thanks, Zach, for that answer. Dumb motherfucking magical busting magic.
Okay.
Apparition apprehension.
Not very scientific, but pretty scientific.
It's pretty good. Apparition apprehension.
Ooh, alliteration. I like it.
Ecto deterrence.
Mm-hmm.
Psychokinetic depolarization.
Yep.
That might have been from the second movie.
It might have been. Yeah, that's true.
Kinetic megaplasm.
Okay.
Ectological manifestations. Retro ionizing particle disseminating status field projector. That's good right there.
I am really enjoying listening to you read these all at once. This is great.
Ruining Haley Joel Osment's childhood. A Sixth Sense reference.
Okay. Yep.
There's ghosts in that. I think that's
there are ghosts in that.
Something. Spectral electrical light show. That just sounds fun. Maybe go to the Dome in Las Vegas for that. An abnormal array of sentient oblong mob dong. Oblong mob dong.
A lot going on in that one, yeah.
And then guzzleization goggles.
Guzzleization goggles. Great.
I don't know. Yeah, this is one of those.
Maybe that's what they're called. Honestly, I don't know what their goggles are called.
Well, I made it up.
Perfect. Yeah.
It's one of those. It's like just a bunch of gibberish stuff. There's not much jokes to go off of here. Favorite Reginald Vell Johnson role.
Forgot we put this question in there.
Oh yeah,
what one? Yeah.
You know what? He came up on another thing I was listening to / watching this week. Reginald Vell Johnson came up, and I
really.
Yes, I can't remember what it was right now. But yeah, he came up again, which I just found crazy.
That's great. Yeah, I haven't thought about him in a while before we watched the first one.
Me either. And someone's like, "What was his name?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, Reginald Vell Johnson." And I was like, "How do you guys remember this?" The winner is Cop and Die Hard.
Such an iconic role. Yep.
Yeah, I voted for Family Matters because of Urkel.
Mm-hmm. He did have a lot more to do in that show, also.
I did like that show growing up, I think.
Yeah.
Besides Slimer, what would you name your ghost sidekick? Boognish.
Ooh, wait, that's a Ween thing, right?
That's a Ween reference, yeah.
Yeah.
Echo, with an exclamation. Drinker.
Drinker, okay.
Hey, then, have your own ghost drinking buddy. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Sploink. Creeper. Some Minecraft fans here. Bruce McDooley. I don't know if that's a reference to something.
Yeah, I feel like some of these might just sail over our head.
Bruce McDooley. Spunk, Buster.
Great. I like Buster.
Buster, yeah. Oh, that's good because Ghostbusters. I didn't even think about it.
Makes you feel good.
Bill Cosby in Ghost Perv. Okay.
Okay.
Well, there's that Ghost Dad movie. I think something to do with that reference. Hora Lux. Okay. Horalu. We got Steamer.
That one was mine.
And Jizzy Gillespie.
Oh.
Let's ignore that one.
Yeah.
We got
a nice disrespectful jazz reference.
It's time to take jazz down a peg, all right? I like Sploink, Spunk, Buster, Steamer. Yeah, and Drinker. I think Drinker's good.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Those are all great responses. And then rate Ghostbusters. 11 out of 12 voted 5 out of 5.
Fantastic.
Somebody put a 4. How dare them?
Ugh.
What were you gonna say, and?
I don't remember. It wasn't important.
Cool. Well, thanks again for taking that, everybody. Yeah, I'll do
without
it again
a doubt
for Ghostbusters 2 and 3 and 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Or number 3
until we're done busting ghosts.
Number 3 is called Ghostbusters Answer the Call, apparently, which I didn't know.
That's Lady Ghostbusters, as the internet knows it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're
I didn't realize they gave it like an official title. But yeah, let's turn it to Ghostbusters 2, Chris. What do you say?
Let's do it, Tanner. And you and I talked a little bit before we started recording today, but I have seen this movie a number of times. Have you? What's your familiarity with Ghostbusters 2?
I think similar to what you were saying. I watched it on TV a lot. The ending, especially, I knew very well. With the Statue of Liberty and all that. And I, in my head, I seem to remember it being better than the first one for some reason. And I think growing up, maybe I had that idea or I was confusing the two. Because a lot of this movie I just didn't remember. And then I was like, oh, I must have. I don't know why I always thought Ghostbusters 2 was better or better than people said. But I have a different opinion now rewatching it.
Spoilers.
Yeah, I think I just watched it a ton randomly, both of them randomly on TV at different times, and just got them all mixed up together.
Yeah.
What about you?
It's all the same people, and it's all the same setting, so it's pretty easy to get them swapped up a little bit.
The exact same structure too, of a movie.
Like a big walking thing at the end for the finale, and
there's a scene where they go to jail and have to convince the mayor, and then they let's see, there's like a montage in the middle with the new theme song. Same structure. Yeah.
Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they same thing. I was telling you, like, this was on Comedy Central all the time as a kid, like all the time, and. Before Netflix and everything, I feel like I spent a lot of time on Comedy Central. So I've seen this movie in 20 to 45 minute chunks, 40 times over. Excited to talk about it with you today. It was fun watching it again as as an old and seeing if it held up to how I remembered it when I was 13,
Yes, same here.
Yeah.
You're not an old, Chris. You're an older.
This is true. And I wasn't 13 when the movie came out. I want to make that clear. But
right. You're not that kind of old. Cool. Yeah, well let's get into it. The movie is again directed by Ivan Reitman and came out in 1989. And how many years later is that, Chris? From the first movie?
Yeah, so this starts 5 years later. It's the first 3 words of the movie, and we've got the gang back together. But first, we get a little scene of some ooze, and we see Sigourney Weaver once again. But now she's got a baby.
She's got a baby. Mm-hmm. She's walking it down the sidewalk, and at some point, somebody stops to talk to her, and the the carriage starts going off on its own. Yeah. Then there's a baby carriage chase scene.
Yes.
At the start of the
movie starts with a baby carriage chase. And it's not just like rolling away. The carriage had rolled through this pink ooze that was seeping up out of the ground, and it is like possessed, I think is probably the right word here. So it's like, yeah, flying through the streets, it's turning, it's avoiding traffic, and Sigourney Weaver is trying to catch up. Dana from the first movie.
Yeah, so it's going and going, and eventually stops right before it's about to get hit by a truck. Mm-hmm. So I don't really know the point of this part. Was it just because it got slime on its wheels? And then
I think yes, and it's like a way to bring the Ghostbusters back together, because we find out pretty quick after the intro that they had a bunch of lawsuits after the events of Ghostbusters 1, and they're not busting ghosts no more. Not right now, at least.
No, they're well, I guess my question with that is, was that an attempt to get the baby to the museum to be taken over? Like, you know, how later on that becomes the goal, to get the baby, right? But, or was this just a random occurrence and the baby hadn't been like pinpointed yet? You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I hadn't thought about that.
It just happens to get the first person to get haunted in recent memory is Sigourney Weaver.
Exactly.
Again, yeah.
And her baby, who's like the whole plot of the second half of this movie. So, yeah.
So the Ghostbusters aren't busting. Well, they're busting down parties. That's what they're doing.
They sure are.
Doing birthday parties for little kids. And already the first two scenes, it's like all kid related. There's baby stuff. There's kids' birthday parties. And just while I'm thinking of it right now, I know this movie's rated PG, and so was the first movie. But this came out years after PG-13 had been invented. And when the first one, or it came out, and the first one was before that happened. And I definitely think it would have had a PG-13 rating if it had come out later, right? The first movie.
Can I actually give you a piece of a little tidbit from the book that I read?
Please.
The first Ghostbusters movie came out on the exact same day as Gremlins. And one of the reasons that people think that Ghostbusters made more money than Gremlins was because Gremlins was PG-13 and Ghostbusters was PG.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
Gremlins was PG-13?
I think so.
I don't think so.
Or maybe you're right. Maybe it was before. I'll have to check my notes on that. I have that.
Well, because we talked about the Temple of Doom came out in '84, and that was like one of the instigating moments for
for PG-13.
Yeah, Gremlins is definitely PG as well.
Oh, PG. Oh, interesting. Okay.
What did it say in the? Did it mention that specifically in the book though?
Yeah, I thought it did. I'll have to go back and double check though.
Well, yeah. My point though was just that you can already see because of the cartoons influence and where the toys have been between the first movie and now. They shot for a PG rated movie rather than making it like the same tone as the first one. And it really shows in all the jokes. There's so much baby time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to go off. Venkman's entire movie is just like all of his jokes relate around just being cutesy with the baby. Like, I feel like that's his entire role in this movie is just to be like cute and not funny. Chris, where are we in this movie? I got off track there on my rant.
We needed that rant. It was just what the world needed. We're still right at
too much baby. There's too much kiddie stuff in this. That's all.
No, it's totally fair. Your rant broke Discord though, Tanner. That was the problem.
Breaking the internet. Finally.
You did it. You finally did it.
We've been trying to go viral.
Yeah. Well, we got 12 fucking people doing our survey, so I think we made it, dude. That's
two of them are us, but
yeah, you're not
wrong. So they're at the birthday party. The kids want He-Man. They don't want the Ghostbusters. Mm-hmm. They're chanting He-Man, and they're not really interested, but they're dancing around singing the Ghostbusters song, which is a meta moment. I feel like a little bit.
They kind of own at the beginning. I liked how this movie started because it kind of owns the insane popularity that was the first movie. You know what I mean? And they make it like they were at this high and they have fallen so far. and they're doing kids' birthday parties, and Venkman has like a shitty TV show where he where he talks to psychics, and Dan Aykroyd owns like an occult store where he sells weird books, and yeah, so they're not flying high like they were at the end of the first movie.
Yeah, I don't know if they must be in debt, or at least they got sued by the city. I think you mentioned that. So they get paid for the birthday party. It's Dan Aykroyd and Ernie, right? Ernie Hudson. I'm saying their real names. I'm gonna probably like just mix up their names all day. Like
that's fine.
The actor versus the character.
I know who Bill Murray and Venkman are. I can handle both.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And we catch up with Sigourney Weaver goes to Harold Ramis's place of work where he's doing some testing on human emotions, seeing if they affect the world around them or something, right?
Yeah, but it kind of just seems like he's torturing these two people.
Yeah.
Like they have showed up for like marriage counseling, and he is like turning up the heat, and he keeps delaying the start of their thing. It really just kind of seems like torture, you know?
Yeah, it's torture to get them upset, and he so he can try to read if their anger causes like particle disruption or whatever it is that they're trying to test.
Yeah, it's a nice little bit, and it's kind of going on in the background while Dana and Egon are just talking about what happened with the stroller. And it seems to Dana that there's some more paranormal activity that's returned in the last 5 years, and for some reason is coming after her or like the stroller or whatever. So she wants Egon's help. But it's also revealed here. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's just the test that he is doing happens to end up coinciding with the way the slime works, which is just a happy coincidence. You know what I mean? It's like,
it kind of is, isn't
vibes. It? Yeah, it's like he's already testing the effect of bad vibes or whatever.
He's become he's at the forefront of bad vibes research at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. What else is revealed?
It's also revealed that the baby is not Venkman's, even though they ended the first movie together. And her and Venkman had a bit of a falling out.
Yep.
What's going on? Yeah.
And
based on your rant earlier, Tanner, I think you would have enjoyed this movie more if Venkman didn't know what was going on.
If he didn't know what was going on?
If he didn't get brought in, he wouldn't have been able to do all the baby stuff. Is my only point. Yeah.
I just wish they would have been together, because they kind of just rehashed the same kind of love story between them, so they did it again this time. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna end up ripping this movie to shreds. That's how it feels.
I love how we made it cordially through like the source, and this is the movie that you're all out for. I love it.
Well, the source I never expected to be good.
This is fair.
All right, where do we go next here?
Yeah, we go back and we do meet Venkman, and he is, like I mentioned before, he's on this talk show. He is interviewing psychics, and the people he has on his show are crazy. It just seems like this talk show is not under syndicate. This is not a successful show. He has not moved up from Ghostbusters to take on this show. And I remember my dad would always quote the Holiday Inn at Paramus that the woman keeps talking about, because she thought that she got abducted by aliens, but it was at the Holiday Inn in Paramus. And my dad would always quote that when I was a kid. So
why would he be quoting it? What was his reference?
Just like it's like a random place. I don't really know.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Where did dad jokes come from, Tanner?
Did he love Ghostbusters 2, or is this like just a connection that you made watching it?
He didn't even have this movie. He just like watched it, and I think it was just like a thing that he said with his friends.
Gotcha. Nice.
Yeah. So.
During this note, they do say that one of the guys says the end of the world is going to happen this New Year's Eve at midnight, and Bill Murray is like, which does come true, I guess. But he's like, this premonition is bad for your book sales, because by the time the book gets out, the world's going to be over. And yeah, the lady at the hotel says it's going to end in 2016, which is the year that Lady Ghostbusters came out. I don't know if that was.
Oh, I didn't know that. Did it come out on Valentine's Day? Because that was the day that she thought.
I wanted to look it up, but no, I think it was like a summer blockbuster movie.
I'm a little surprised I didn't see, because do you remember when when Back to the Future, when it arrived, when that day in the future, when we got there, they made a big deal out of it. I'm a little surprised that the same thing didn't happen with Ghostbusters back in 2016.
Maybe it did.
Maybe it did, and I just missed it. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. There's then I think we get to the museum where Dana works, and we meet Peter McNichol playing, what's his character's name?
Dr. Poha, but the first name, can you say it?
Janusz Poha.
Janusz?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. And I have very distinct memories of him from Comedy Central. Like him in the painting, I think, are what I remember from this movie.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
watching
this later, what did you think of his performance?
I thought it was good. It's over the top. I don't really know what he's supposed to be. What is he, Italian or?
I don't know. Idea? Maybe German. Who knows?
German? Oh, it could be German. That sounds. Yeah. He's very eccentric, and I don't even know. What did you think of his performance?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't love it, but honestly, it was one of the more fun parts of this. I don't know. It was fine. I just have these vivid memories from a kid, and it was funny watching him do his thing.
Yeah, he does that accent like this, or something, very, very up like this. He's always like straining to get that. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it stood out. I mean, his performance does stand out quite a bit. You get a shot.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, Dana took a job working for this man while her baby was young. She couldn't do her orchestra job, so she's doing painting, salvaging, painting, refurbishing.
Yep.
Right?
Is that what she's doing? I actually didn't know. I thought she was taking an art class at the beginning. Then I realized she was working there. So if you say,
I think they're like, they're like trying to do like what's the word I'm looking for? There's a word.
Yeah, no. Yeah. What did you just say?
Refurbishing? But you do that for like cars and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Restoring?
There we go. I'll take that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she's working for this eccentric little curly-haired man who might be German, might be Italian, and restoring paintings. Thank you. And she's planning on quitting soon to go back to her orchestra job now that her baby is getting old enough. Whatever. Anything from this first scene at the museum?
Well, yeah. Again, you see that he's like hitting on her. He wants to go out on a date with her.
Yeah.
She is used as a plot device for all the guys to be wanting to go on dates with, like especially all like it was Lewis in the first one, and Venkman, and now you got this guy kind of trying to get with her as well. She's denying him, but at the end of this,
and they gave her this weird temp job just as a plot device, also. Like this is the only reason we know about like Vigo. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. She's always connected to these things. It makes me wonder about her now. Is she part of the? Yeah. Is she haunted? Is she Vigo? Or what was the first one's name? Gozer.
Oh, Gozer the Gozerian.
She could be Gozer.
Yeah.
But at the end of the scene, you do see there's a painting of this Vigo guy, and he starts to like come out of the painting a little bit. So it's like the head of it starts to like kind of poke out. You get a little taste of like that being part of it, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. They're hinting at it a little bit in this first scene. Yeah.
And then so we get a shot of what Ray's been doing. Ray opened a store called Ray's Occult. And he just sells a bunch of like, I don't even know, occult items. What do you think he sells at the store, Chris?
Not much, if I had to guess. It seems like a pretty niche business. But there is a customer in there at the first shot, and I don't know, probably just like a bunch of I don't know, like
candles,
Lovecraft books and shit. I don't know.
Yeah, he does
candles for sure. Candles, yeah.
Candles, voodoo dolls, that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Like pentagram, like coasters, maybe. Like you could give those out
coasters, pentagram necklaces,
yeah,
earrings.
Mm-hmm.
and he Venkman comes in during the scene, and you get the little reunion here. Venkman had ordered a book called Magical Paths to Fortune and Power. So you can see Venkman is still just, trying to make money and get rich by whatever means necessary.
Yeah, he's living in this part of science that isn't quite science with his TV show and with this book.
And he finds out, even though they weren't supposed to say anything, that they are investigating something that happened to Dana Barrett. And you get a little bit more about, they haven't been together for a long time. You don't really know why, and they talk about it a little bit later. But it's a very flimsy relationship logic in this movie.
Well, it seemed like he was just a pretty shitty boyfriend.
But at one point, she's like, I think you're better than you are, but it wasn't your fault. I didn't break up with you. When they're asking, like, why didn't you break up? But she says, like, all the things. She says, you're better than you think you are. I didn't break up with you, but it just didn't work out. But he didn't know. I don't know. I feel like they didn't really have a good reason. You know what I mean? Fair. And then they're just backing it instantly for no reason. Kind of bugs me. They should have just made them be together, and they had this baby, and that was their baby. That would have been so much better.
Yeah, and it did say, so the book that I read, which already has given me one untrue fact about Gremlins, but they did say that they thought that Bill Murray was really good at flirting, and so like he either needed to flirt with Dana, and if they were married, that wouldn't really happen, or he needed to flirt outside of their relationship, at which point he's an unlikable creep. So this made the most sense from a narrative thing for why they did this way.
That's what I was thinking. They're like, we got to make him like the funny single guy again.
Yes. Yeah.
But they didn't even do anything with that. Like didn't. There's no jokes in this movie,
right? Because like you said, they bring them back together immediately. And when he shows up at her apartment, he is not like, it's not like likable behavior. He's like kind of being an asshole, and like he's at his ex-girlfriend's apartment. Like I don't know.
Yeah, but he also like he was kind of an asshole in the first one, but everything he said was hilarious. Mm-hmm. In this movie, he says nothing funny at all, and he's just like he literally all his little lines, his little like improv things like don't land. I don't know what they did to Venkman in this movie, or if his heart wasn't in it. That could be it. Anyways, I got a lot to say about it.
Yeah, no worries.
Also, I was thinking, you were talking about that book. Gremlins 2 is PG-13. That came out in 1990, though, so a little bit after that.
Yeah, I don't think that. I'll double check. But yeah.
Anyway, so you get some more. You get some baby jokes. One of like 5 scenes with he's like kind of talking to the baby, and I don't know. I wrote weak script right here, Chris. What did you think about these scenes with the baby?
Yeah, they were fine. I don't know. I don't know. It's a sequel. I feel like they did a lot of good things well here, but yeah, the scenes with the baby, they need the baby for the plot, so it kind of makes sense, but yeah, I don't know. This part was fine. I'm not quite going to co-sign on saying that they ruined Venkman in this movie, because I thought he still was pretty magnetic to watch, but I will agree, this scene was pretty weak.
The things that run as jokes in this movie for him are like, he's like, "Oh, you're a little stinker. Does your father stink?" Like it's very just like cutesy baby talk jokes.
Yeah,
I don't know. Lewis was the only thing really making me laugh in this movie.
Lewis was great in this movie. He would have won favorite non-Ghostbuster again, except they make him a Ghostbuster at the end, so he can't be.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Anyway, so the whole team's back together at this point. They're investigating Dana's weird little stroller thing. So they check out the baby's bedroom. They check out the baby. They've got their little, is this haunted machines that they're pointing at stuff before finally going back down to the street where the little, like, I don't know, stroller chase happened in the before the opening credits. And they find some of this goo that's poking up from the ground. So they decide they're going to return that night with some power tools, and they're going to dig some shit up.
Yeah, so they just jackhammer right into the middle of the street. Mm-hmm. And the cops come and they stop him, or they try to stop him, and say, "You can't be digging right here. Do you guys have? Why are you guys digging?" And then they pretend to be New Yorkers, put on a New York accent, and they convince the cop to leave him alone. And so they lower him down there, or am I getting ahead of myself?
No, you're doing great. Yeah, it's kind of they end up lowering Dan Aykroyd down into the pit, and then up on top, the cops kind of come a couple times, and like you said, they switch on their New York accents, and hey, why you busting our balls? Like a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. You also get some shots in between while this is happening of the Vigo painting, kind of talking to whatever his name is, Peter McNichol's character. Yeah. Yep. Calling it the season of evil, and he needs to find a child so he can live again. And he kind of like shocks his eyes and like brainwashes him basically, and like, or possesses him.
Yeah. It's kind of a cross between the two, I think. It's like possessed and brainwashed. Yeah.
Because he's pretty normal sometimes when he's talking to. It's not like when Sigourney Weaver was possessed in the first movie, where she's completely different. He can kind of talk and think normally, but then still does this guy's bidding. Anyway, so then it goes back, and they go down, and there's a river of slime in the sewers here. So it's like pink slime. Mm-hmm. And they find that, and hands and like ghostly figures start kind of bubbling out of it. And he gets raised up, and on the way up, he accidentally knocks out the power line and causes a total blackout in New York City from one power line.
Well, it was also a pipe.
It was a pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some power cords going through that pipe, but maybe not. Who knows?
I just feel like it's not going to be the whole city is not connected to that one pipe somehow.
Dude, have you been to New York City? Of course it is. That's the central pipe.
Yeah, you haven't seen it where it's like there's just a sign on that says they don't touch this pipe.
Yeah,
this will knock out the power
goes through right here.
This will knock out the power to the whole city. Do not touch.
Yes.
Yeah, so you get that. What happens next?
They also grab a sample. They also grab a sample of this pink goo. We get a quick scene of God, I hate saying this guy's name. Janos?
Yeah.
Dr. I don't know, the weird guy with
Peter
curly
McNichol.
hair.
That's what I'm
calling. Peter McNichol. Let's go with that. He shows up at Dana's apartment, and originally he's there to kind of figure out how to steal this baby for Vigo, the Carpathian, which is the painting. But instead, he just ends up kind of hitting on her and being super creepy. And he leaves unsuccessful.
This is during the blackout too, and it shows.
Yes.
Like, he kind of says, like, I was worried, are you doing okay with the blackout? And then you see after he kind of just leaves it alone. He could definitely have like gotten in there and taken the baby.
Yeah.
But then he leaves and he has like flashlight eyes for a second, which never comes back into the movie, does it?
He has all these weird powers because he also comes by and scoops up the baby later, but then he doesn't have powers when they're fighting or. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. It's kind of weird, but.
But then, when he's talking, like, he doesn't make an attempt to, like, just go steal the baby. Why not? When he's at her door right here, if he's being possessed by this thing.
Yeah.
Anyways. So now they go to court. So there's a courtroom scene here. The Ghostbusters have been arrested for digging up, the street and causing a blackout.
The middle of First Avenue and causing a blackout, yeah.
And their lawyer is Rick Moranis. Lewis is their lawyer, and he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just a tax lawyer, basically. And he's a really bad lawyer. They kind of lead him into what to say half the time.
That scene with Bill Murray on the bench, like leading his questions, is pretty funny. Yeah,
that's pretty good. It doesn't work. Basically, they are sentenced. They're found guilty, and said they got to go to Rikers Island for years. Seems like a harsh penalty. But luckily, Chris, what happens?
Well, it turns out the judge is putting out all these bad vibes, and they've got this pink slime sample right there in the court. And with all the bad vibes, it starts bubbling. And pretty soon, ghosts start popping out. Too bad you just sentenced all the dudes with ghost knowledge to Rikers Island, huh?
Yep, too bad.
Too bad. Too
End
bad
of the
you did
movie. New York gets destroyed.
Ghosts win. Movie over.
Yeah. The sample bubbles up, and all these ghosts start coming out of it, and they happen to be like people that he sent to the electric chair. The Scolari brothers, he says.
Yeah, that was a nice
I
touch.
tried them for murder. So it's basically this is like the proof to the judge. Like, there's no way you can deny that this isn't real now, you know?
Yeah. I killed these dudes.
So, and then they're back. The Ghostbusters are back. So this happens. Yep. First of all, this is the first time they get arrested for it and have to prove it right into the judge's eyes. And later on, they get arrested again and sent like to the loony bin. It's like the same thing, but they already proved it directly to the judge. Anyway,
yeah.
It's like, is this not enough? What is going to be enough for people to believe that?
They made a whole documentary about the first one. Just watch the first one.
Did they make a documentary in the movies?
No,
world?
I'm sorry. I was joking that the first movie would be a documentary to them because anyway,
behind the Bustin'.
Behind the Bustin'. Yep.
So they're back. Finally, they're back. The Ghostbusters are here.
Yep.
And we get a montage.
We sure do. What happens in that montage?
God. I don't even know. Janine is back. They showed Janine. She's back as the receptionist.
Yep. The mayor has a new assistant who's kind of a jerk. They collect a bunch of slime.
Collect some slime. There's a ghost jogger at one point. Just like little random clips of stuff. Slimer is eating in another scene. Slimer's back. They upgraded the top of their car with all these like bells and whistles and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just, everyone's happy that the Ghostbusters are back. They got new commercials. They're busy again. And Chris, do you want to talk about this new song at all? Do you know anything about it?
Is it the Bobby Brown song?
No, that is in the movie and was a big hit, or a pretty big hit. But there's the rendition of the Ghostbusters theme by Run DMC.
Oh, by Run DMC. Yeah.
Pretty uninspired, I feel like.
Yeah.
Lazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the best. I think Ray Parker Jr. kind of, he plagiarized a bunch of that song, but he made something new and different. And Run DMC, they did fine.
It was like a remix before remixing was good.
And they kind of started remixing with that Aerosmith song, that Walk This Way one. That was one of the first crossovers in that way,
True. Is there a version of that song without Run DMC?
Walk This Way?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. It's really good.
I can't remember. The original one is good too, you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so
especially when it comes to Aerosmith songs, because I could have a rant about Aerosmith the way you had a rant about Bill Murray talking baby talk in this movie.
What do you got to say about Aerosmith, huh?
Oh, dude, are you sure you want this? It's like a 2-minute story. It has nothing to do with Ghostbusters. Okay. I went to Universal Studios with my family when I was 13, and they had a ride there.
Is this the place where they set that video game, the Universal Studios theme park ride?
It sure is. But anyway, they had a ride there, and the line took forever, and the ride was 12 seconds long because the whole thing is you're driving really fast, and so it's a fast car, and the whole time they were just playing "Dude Looks Like a Lady," and there was 3 songs, "Sweet Emotion."
Yeah.
I don't know. And I just ever since then, it just feels like they're so overrated. They have 7 songs that I actually genuinely like, but I don't know, man. Are they, anyway, I don't care if they're Aerosmith.
They're overrated. And that ride kind of ruined it for you. Made it just.
Yeah. I think that's the thesis of this story for sure. Yeah. That ride kind of pushed me over the top. But anyway, back to Run DMC, back to Ghostbusters, back to New York City. They also talk about how we see a little bit more about the slime, right? So when you are angry, it starts bubbling and gets kind of crazy. But if you play like good music to it, it dances inside of a toaster, makes the toaster like bounce around in time to the good time music. And then they also hint that Egon might have tried to have sex with the slime. Did you catch that also?
I wrote Harold Ramis is fucking the slime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
No, it's bizarre. No, it makes no sense.
It's a weird joke. It's a weird joke to put in a kid's movie, but
you're calling it a kids movie. This is where they went wrong. They shouldn't have made a kids movie.
Yeah.
So let's see. Yeah, they call it mood slime, or somebody says the phrase mood slime, or maybe I wrote that. But it feeds on bad vibes. They say it feeds on bad vibes like a cop in a donut factory, which I don't understand that joke.
Oh, Tanner, have you not been to a donut factory where they factory donuts?
Well, I've been to Krispy Kreme, and you see them on the conveyor belt come out.
Yeah.
So sort of. But what is that? Why would a cop be? Wouldn't he have good vibes in a donut factory?
Oh, I thought it was like, what was the setup to that joke? I thought it was like,
the slime feeds on bad vibes like a cop in a donut factory.
I guess cops would feed on the donuts in the donut factory.
Oh, it's a feed joke.
Yeah. Cops,
okay, see, that makes no sense. That's a terribly written joke then. I'm sorry. I'm out. Because it feeds on bad vibes like something that feeds on bad vibes, not like something that just feeds on anything.
Eats. Yeah.
What if, they should say feeds on bad vibes like me eating a sandwich. Like that is just as funny as
feeds on bad vibes like Tanner eating macaroni and cheese alone on his couch.
Funny because it's me eating and it's got bad vibes.
Put that in your movie, dude. You guys can have that one.
They didn't have any reference to the bad vibes part of the setup, right?
You're not wrong.
Which is crucial to making a joke. Anyways, what do I know? I'm not Dan Aykroyd.
You know how to write a joke better than that joke that Dan Aykroyd wrote. Yeah, that's what you know.
I just feel like, they had to rush through so much of this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens next?
I think Dana is still at her painting restoration job, and Venkman comes through, and they take a bunch of pictures of the Vigo the Carpathian painting, the big haunted painting, and like Bill Murray does this thing where he's like a photographer, and he's like playing like he's shooting a model. And
it's like, yes, pose for me, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And Dr. Poha is not having it, and he's trying to kick these guys out of there. And he's also a little jealous that Dana seems to be spending time with this guy. I don't know. We just get a little more world building with the slime and Vigo and everybody there.
Yeah, right around this time, I think it was right before they do this. She gets at her place, the bathtub starts oozing out pink slime and kind of like attacks her. Like the whole bathtub turns into like a slime monster very briefly. And this just furthers all of that. And so that makes her go stay with Venkman, right?
Yep. Okay. So her and the baby go to just live with Venkman until they can figure out what's going on here.
And then I feel like I missed a little bit until Janine and Lewis get together. Did I miss anything here?
Let me read through here. I did like this line. Don't try any of those old cheap moves on me. And then Bill Murray goes, "Oh no, I have all new cheap moves."
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Good little.
But
line.
then you get more like 3 or 4 minutes of him goo goo gagaing with the baby.
You do get that. Yep.
I really do feel like there's like 6 whole minutes of him just like kind of like being cutesy, like dad funny, and like not like in a fun dad joke way, but just like cute is the only way to call it. You know what I mean? Where it's like, that's funny, like that, rather than in the first one where it's like it's biting funny. You know what I mean? Like you actually like are laughing at the jokes. Anyways, I don't know how to describe it, but I'm gonna keep shitting on this movie.
No, that's fair.
And it's because like I said, I loved this growing up, and I somehow I must have either been confusing them, or maybe because I was younger, I liked the more kiddie stuff.
Yeah.
But now I kind of have turned on it a little bit.
Everybody involved with this movie made millions of dollars. They can use those millions of dollars to wipe up their tears.
What about my tears?
Yeah,
give me millions of dollars to wipe my tears.
That's why you have a show on podcast platforms, Tanner. You don't get the millions of dollars, but you get to complain about Ghostbusters too.
That's true. Hopefully, I can make some money and dry these tears one day.
One day. And until then, your face is just going to be always damp. It's going to stay damp.
I got the wettest face around.
The wettest face, the west of the Mississippi. Yeah, so back into the movie here. Lewis, like you mentioned, asks out Janine, but Janine's busy babysitting, so they agree they're gonna go on a date and watch Oscar, the little baby.
A nice babysitting date, everyone's favorite first date.
Such a good first date, bro. There's no pressure, not awkward. It's something both of you want to do.
Janine and Lewis are the funniest part of this movie, and they're right before he asks her on this date. She answers, she's talking on the phone, and she's like, "Sorry, the Ghostbusters are busy right now," and says, well, don't go in there then, and hangs up the phone. And I just thought that was a funny moment of just like, well, just don't go where the ghost is. Just don't go in that room. That's
Have you thought of that? Have you tried that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Ghostbusters have printed off the photos that they took of the Vigo painting, and they are in a dark room printing them out because it's the 1980s. And in the photos, they see the Vigo painting is sending off all sorts of crazy vibes that the camera was able to pick up, and they're also able to see that river of slime that Dan Aykroyd's character saw when they lowered him below the street. And so they go
pictures are showing things that weren't in the scene, right? I was kind of confused by that. Okay.
I think they kind of hand waved it away as just paranormal stuff. But yeah, there's stuff that was not at the museum that's showing up in these photos that they took. And then as they're piecing all this together, the photos just spontaneously catch fire, which I'm sure is also paranormal stuff, right?
Yeah, paranormal stuff, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Saved by Winston, he busts down the door with the fire extinguisher and just breaks it.
Yeah.
And they are off to somewhere. Where are they off to? The museum?
No, they're heading down to the tunnels underneath the city. Because that's what they saw, with the pink slime and all that. So they go explore the tunnels. A ghost train.
Venkman doesn't go either. They make a point of him going on a date, and he asks her if she wants to skip the date and go hang out in a tunnel with these guys, and she doesn't want to go. So he goes on the date instead. And then, like you said, what happens down there?
Winston gets hit by a ghost train. And then he slips and falls into the slime river. So he's in this purple goo, this pink goo that we've been following the whole movie. And then Ray and Egon just jump in after him, which seems short-sighted to me. But I'm not a Ghostbuster. Yeah. Maybe I don't have what it takes.
Yeah, Chris, you don't have what it takes to bust. I'm sorry.
But busting makes me feel good, Tanner.
Well, you got to try a little harder.
All right, I'll keep listening to that song. Yep. I'll get there one day.
You'll get there one day. So they both jump in. The slime, probably a bad idea, but cuts back to this is where they're having their little relationship talk, Venkman and Dana. He says, you weren't good for me, but I didn't dump you. You're much better than you think. It's very confusing. They wanted to have it both ways, where it's nothing really happened, that nobody know. Neither of them know why they broke up, so they can continue to be right in the same space 5 years later.
Right. There's no traumatic baggage that would come up.
Yeah.
With, that would come with a breakup like that came with this breakup. Yeah.
There's no there could have been a moment where I got this new job and had to move away, or you maybe not cheated on me, because why would she get back together with him then he's an asshole, or something, some kind of catalyst for their breakup, where they kind of they throw in a lot of messy relationshipy sounding things. But I feel like it's just a bad excuse to get them flirty and together again, and have that just have this storyline again. You know what I mean? Of them maybe getting together. Yeah. So what happens after this little dinner date here, Chris?
Are we talking the Lewis and Janine dinner date, or are we?
I was talking Bill Murray. I think it's kind of cutting in between some things here.
Yeah, it cuts between a couple of things, but yeah. So Bill Murray is out with Sigourney Weaver. And
talked about this, yes.
Already. Yes. And so they're kind of catching up about their breakup and all those things. Meanwhile, we have the boys crawl out of a sewer, right? The other three Ghostbusters kind of climb out of the sewer. They're covered in this pink goo, and they're pissed off at each other, and they're fighting. They come to realize that they're angry because they're soaking in this horrible bad vibes goo, and it's giving them bad vibes. Not bad vibes, Tanner.
Oh no, bad vibes. Yeah, the stuff, the ooze is making them aggressive. They call it pure coordinated evil, which is, I don't know if that's a scientific term like we were talking about before. Pure coordinated evil. But yeah, these bad vibes, man.
Yeah. They also use the phrase psychomagnetheric, which is made up science nonsense.
That was the one that I wrote down.
Yeah, they use that one a bunch. Yeah.
Super normal potential. It's got super normal potential.
That's what my teacher said about me in high school. You have the potential of someone super normal, Chris.
Yeah, that was your superlative in the book. This guy is the super normal guy.
He's the most normal.
Mm-hmm. He's potentially going to come out as normal. Let's hope. And so this is kind of cut in between shots of back at Bankman's apartment. Lewis and Janine, now they fully started hooking up. They're making out. They are getting together.
Go Lewis.
Goes and sits on her lap and all that. Yeah, and Sigourney Weaver comes back to the apartment as they're making out, and Rick Moranis' hair is all just up and standing straight up, and he's got like lipstick all over his face, looking real good.
Isn't that what you look like after you've been making out, Tanner?
Definitely. It's just like messy and wild.
There's just so much lipstick all over my face, like my cheekbones, my forehead, just lipstick.
It's that, cartoonish Hollywood makeout look.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is all kind of happening at once. They show up at dinner with Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver and tell them what's going on. Still covered in slime, so they leave together. And now they got to go talk to the mayor, right?
Yep. And let's see. I think there was a scene in here, unless I missed it, where they Vigo and Dr. Poha actually they make a deal where if Dr. Poha can steal the baby, then he gets to keep Sigourney Weaver as his prize. He gets to keep Dana
as his wife. And this is kind of like where he's being controlled by this guy, but not, you know what I mean? Because he still has these like semi-rational reactions and way of talking to people.
He has his own motivations too. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, so then they go to the mayor's office to beg him again, just like trying to get them to let them ghost bust, I guess.
I think so. Yeah, like let them, please, sir, let us ghost bust.
Let us bust, please.
We're just trying to bust.
And they're like, you got to get everyone in town to be give off good vibes all at once. And he's like, I can't do that. I'm the mayor. Blah blah blah. There's no way. He says being miserable and treating others like dirt is any New Yorker's God-given right. So basically their plan is to get everyone giving good vibes to cure this slime.
Yes.
It's like kind of a fun idea.
And they call a meeting with the mayor of New York City to pitch him on that plan.
Yep.
Just fix our vibes and we'll be good to go.
Yeah, so that's happening at the same time. Also, like I said, back at the makeout room, um, Dana feels some wind on the back of her head, and she looks out into where her baby was sleeping, and the baby is gone. The baby has the window came up, and the baby walked out onto the ledge outside of the building.
Yes.
Why did all that part happen?
I have no idea. And this part is really weird too, because when the baby's out on the ledge, it gets picked up by what's the actor's name again? I
Peter
can't say
McNichol.
Peter McNichol dressed as like
An old woman.
Yeah, but specifically Mary Poppins comes by with a carriage, but it's like a ghost of him. I don't understand his powers. I'm very confused by what he can and can't do.
Also,
but he just shows up as a ghost and scoops up this baby and carries it off to Vigo.
Yeah, the window opens, the baby goes out and like walks, which it can't normally do.
Mm-hmm.
And then a ghost thing picks it up. Like, why wouldn't the ghost just come to the window and like snag him and leave? Instead it like the window opens way before the ghost arrives, and then the baby walks out on its own.
Yeah,
it's a very strange sequence.
Yeah,
but a ghost baby carriage picks him up and zips away right in front of Dana's eyes.
Normal shit like a ghost baby carriage.
Like
it's
normal
just
ghost baby stuff.
Normal stuff, you guys.
Normal. It's got super normal potential for sure. So then, the baby's gonna be like sacrificed potentially. It's like at this altar kind of thing. And it's kind of flying around and gets put down. And where do we go from here, Chris?
Yeah. Dana follows. She kind of knows that this is what's the actor's name?
Peter McNichol.
Thank you, Peter McNichol. I'll remember this time. So she knows that Peter McNichol is involved, and so she knows to go to the museum, and they try and pitch her on this idea. She can be the mother of this new horrible creature, and she can be super powerful, and she can be married to Peter McNichol, and it'll all be perfect. But she is not on board. She's not giving her baby up to be taken over by Vigo the Carpathian. And so she resists, and they kind of push her aside, and this is going to happen anyway.
We're kind of like a lot of things are happening back and forth. A lot of these scenes with Dana and all that. At one point here, the Ghostbusters are put into an insane asylum by like the mayor's right-hand guy.
Yes.
Because they just like, it's like a bad look for the mayor. He's trying to help the mayor and get these guys out of here. And so they're supposed to be funny. These scenes of them like the therapist thinking they're crazy. The therapist, by the way, is played by Bill Murray's brother. He's in like a ton of movies. Yeah. Okay. Brian Doyle Murray or something like that.
Okay.
And while after they get put in here, then there's like a shit ton of hauntings. So it becomes like what they call Slime Square, Slime City, whatever you want to call it. Another montage of like all these ghostly things happening. And
Slime is up, dude.
Are out. They're in an insane asylum currently. So, Chris, let's go over some of these hauntings during this montage.
Please hit me with them.
Well, we got the coat. Some lady's like fur coat comes alive, and like little like animals start like coming out of it, which was kind of a funny little gag.
Yeah. Is a giant. The Titanic finally arrives in New York City.
Yeah, the Titanic shows up with a bunch of ghosts coming out of it.
Uh-huh.
And who's there to see it with a surprised look on his face, Chris?
Was it the mayor? Oh, Cheech.
Cheech is there for some reason. I don't think he says anything.
Missed the Cheech cameo. Was Chong there or just Cheech?
It's just Cheech and some other guy. Maybe that other guy is famous too, but it's just Cheech kind of looking like, oh, the Titanic. They show him a few times, just like his face. There's also Ernest Borgnine cameo randomly right here. Also, Bobby Brown makes a cameo in this movie. The one who made the hit song for it.
Absolutely.
He's like the door guy. Anyway, so the Titanic arrives.
Yes.
As
And I think that's the last straw for the mayor, or whatever. Whatever happened during this montage is enough to convince the mayor that he needs to get the Ghostbusters back, because the city is falling apart.
Yep, city's falling apart. So now he gets them out of the asylum, and they're off to bust this ghost once and for all.
Right.
They go to the museum, and the slime has like outside of the museum has completely built up like a wall on the outside of the entire building, and so they go try to bust that. Nothing happens. And the crowd, like they attempt it one time, and the crowd starts booing them. Like it's like this crowd is just like willing to just fucking destroy them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like give them a chance, guys. Like you're not going to do any
attempt.
Better.
Yeah. So then they come up with the plan. They're like, we need goodwill. We need positive vibes. So what is it that's what did they say? Decent and pure, and it's the Statue of Liberty.
Mm-hmm. It sure
a lot
is.
Of just silly plot points here.
I mean,
it's
this
cool
part of this movie made me so frustrated watching it again. Like, I know the first one has the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and there's like certainly an element of like silly zaniness at the end. But this is just a stupid ending to a movie.
See, I still think this was the part that I always loved. I think was them controlling the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's very cheesy looking at it now.
Yes.
Yeah, because they go and they spray it with all the slime that made like the toaster move earlier.
Yes.
And then to get the good vibes going, they play Love Lifting Me Higher, whatever that song is called.
Yeah.
Higher and higher.
Your love lifting me higher, more higher than I've ever been busting before.
And then that brings the Statue of Liberty to life.
Literally to life. Before, it just made a toaster kind of bounce to the sound of the music. But this one makes the giant legs and arms and everything move and gives it sentience because it's moving of its own free will.
Well, they covered it with so much slime, Chris. They slimed the fuck out of it. Which, yeah, like using the slime is all of a sudden like part of their thing because the slime, I guess, controls stuff that it touches. The torch lights up. It starts moving off of the island, and it like walks through the water with just its head poking out.
Yep.
And then walks down the street, and everybody is like cheering for the Statue of Liberty walking through the middle of New York, and not like they're being careful. They're not destroying much except for one cop car. But how do they even know what's going on? The Ghostbusters are in the top of this thing. I would be terrified. Like they're all
a 90-foot tall woman that used to be a statue is just walking through downtown. It'd be terrifying.
And yeah, it's like just crowds and crowds of people. Like it's a parade.
Yeah,
that they set up. They literally like set up like parade gates and everything.
Yeah,
like why were they ready for this or something? Why is anyone even outside? Why I don't know.
Well, because they need to get their vibes up. Remember, that's how this movie ends.
I know.
Yeah.
How do they know these things? The Ghostbusters, if they're so high up in this thing, how would they even know it's them controlling it? I don't know. Anyway, so it goes through the city and it goes to the museum, and they use the Statue of Liberty to bash a hole in the top, and then they rope in to the museum.
They sure do.
What happens here?
It was good timing. They're
hold on. Yeah. Before that happens, it cuts in again. Lewis is on his way. He's dressed up as a Ghostbuster now.
And he's got a proton pack.
And he's got a proton pack, and he goes and he's trying to take the bus to wherever they are in his Ghostbusters outfit. And guess who's driving the bus? Slimer.
Oh, Slimer.
How could you forget? Slimer is driving the bus and is like, get on. He's like, oh, it's you. And he gets on the bus with Slimer driving.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, Slimer is just, he's not just the scary ghost. It's like, oh, that's silly old Slimer here. But there's nowhere in the movies that becomes like he's not dangerous. I would still think he's
Apparently,
dangerous.
Tanner, another little factoid from my book. Apparently, Slimer was so popular from the Real Adventures cartoon that we watched last week that they wanted him to have a big part in this movie, and they wrote and shot a bunch of scenes with Rick Moranis specifically and Slimer, but apparently they didn't play with like test audiences, so that subplot got cut.
Oh my god! So that part got left in where Slimer's just
the bus driver. Yeah,
it's so bad. And it's just really silly. Like it doesn't fit at all. I would be fine if they established that Slimer had become like kind of just a cutesy part in part of this movie. You know what I mean? Like in the show, and that he did become their mascot, but they never established any of that.
I think they could have just made him the mascot too.
That's what I mean. They could have been hey, this is Slimer. He kind of assists us in these other Ghost Busts.
Yeah.
Instead, it just shows him once eating and then shows him bus driving, which they're totally cool with.
Yep.
And anyways, so yeah, I interrupted you talking. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're good, man.
You said the timing was good.
Oh yeah, we are almost at the end of this movie. But the Ghostbusters managed to show up at the museum just in time. They're able to interrupt Vigo taking over Dana's baby. And they are about to defeat Vigo, but Ray, Dan Aykroyd's character, kind of turns and Vigo takes him over for a minute, and then they blast him with their proton packs and they win.
Yep. End the movie.
Did I explain that well enough?
Well, yeah, they slime him, or they slime Peter McNichol maybe.
Uh-huh.
And then the painting, the guy has come out of the painting. Is that what did you say? Who did you say they were?
He comes out of the painting. Yeah. And then don't they
looks like, by the way, he looks like Highlander. He looks like
he kind of does, doesn't he?
What's his name? Oh God, I'm forgetting his name. Chris Lambert. Sort of. With that long hair.
You're not wrong.
Anyways, yeah. So he comes out and they try to get him, but what else happens here?
Oh, I don't have a lot of notes on this section. I need your help. You're the one who knows the end.
The big moment is the crowd, because this isn't helping. Like they try to bust him with their normal guns. They get like shocked backwards. There's some jokes of them like they're like frozen on the ground. They can't move. They're being like they were hit so hard with this bust.
Yes.
Like it got reversed on him. And, he's about to do all the shit. And then the crowd outside, right at the stroke of midnight, luckily starts singing Auld Lang Syne, the New Year's theme song, also known as the New Year's theme song.
It's bringing those good vibes.
I wish that'd be what it would be called, the New Year's theme song.
When you're president, you can make that change, Tanner.
Oh, it's so silly. Yeah. So the crowd starts singing all in unison right at midnight while this is all happening. Like, I don't know if they knew that they had to all, band together. Is somebody telling them, hey, we all got to give off good vibes, or it just happened to work?
Just spontaneous vibes, I think.
And they say the singing is neutralizing the slime.
Yeah. They didn't even try to explain that away with science. They just said that.
They just said that exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess they try to bust him again. Ray turns into a demon just for like a second.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense. And then they spray. So the way to bust him is they spray him with slime while they're all singing. It's like neutralizing or whatever. So then they spray him again with slime. Ernie's spraying the slime, and the other two are doing the normal busting with the energy or whatever. What are those? The energy beams
the proton
called?
Packs. Yep.
Yeah. So they're sliming and busting all over him, right?
Yeah. Without a doubt. That's the perfect explanation, Tanner.
So busting, to me, the definition of busting is using the proton packs. But sliming is a separate thing.
Apparently, yeah.
Anyway,
yeah. He's got a whole different pack.
That's the combo. I don't know why the slime. I guess the positive vibes mixed with the bustin' proton packs killed him.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's what it took to bring him down. And then Lewis had been outside on his own, just doing nothing in the Ghostbusters. Basically, he's trying to bust the slime
shell,
on the outside.
Yeah, the shell on the outside of the museum.
And when the Ghostbusters finish everything, he gets praised by the crowd for having defeated the enemy. Yep, and that's that.
Yep. And then there's a couple weird scenes. The other thing that I noticed, like once the slime is all gone, once they've defeated him, then everyone is like good vibes. And Ray is telling everyone that he loves them. And it's kind of weird. But it's a happy ending. Say again?
Why is it weird?
It's just too much. It felt really uncomfortable to me.
Just like you're not comfortable with so much good emotions, Chris.
Well, it was like towards that little weasel.
They're being nice to him. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It was weird to me.
He had been controlled by the thing. I think that's part of it. Like
I guess that is true.
Under a spell or whatever.
Yeah. Then it ends with the painting, just a painting of them.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know why they did that, but that was their choice. And then the movie's over.
Yeah, the Vigo painting turns into a painting of them.
Like, that's why it was. Okay, thank you. That makes more sense.
But why?
I thought that there was just a separate painting of them there. And I was like, this is the dumbest way to end this movie.
I have no idea why. Who painted the painting, though?
I don't know. They make a joke about the fettuccinis, like that's the name of an Italian artist at the end. Right. And that's the joke that the movie ends on.
One of the best jokes in the movie.
Oosh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a weird painting to go out on. And yeah, there's kind of just a little montage of celebrating in the city. And them kind of coming out and getting celebrated by New York. And then we get the end credits. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, the rest, and Slimer at the end.
I did not notice that.
In the credits, and he got an and Slimer at the very end of it.
Wow.
Yeah, they really shoehorned that Slimer guy into this.
You got to get him in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we made it through Ghostbusters 2.
We did.
And what are your thoughts, Tanner?
Oh, boy. I've kind of been slowly just turning on this movie throughout this day. And I think I hate this movie.
Okay.
I mean, it's like there's enjoyable parts and the gang's all together and Lewis is great and Janine is great. And there's some really good moments. I don't even mind. I like the Statue of Liberty scene and like, they brought the Statue of Liberty to life, but it is dumb because it's just like, let's bring another large thing into New York City. Like structurally, it's the exact same as the first movie. They made Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver's part the exact same with them back to square one again for no explanation. Like very weak explanation for all that. Again, like the jokes aren't landing like they did before. They're very toned down and kiddie. They didn't have that cynical bite to it, that made the first one just so like actually laugh out loud funny, even to this day. Like I just watched it last week and I had seen it and I still was laughing out loud.
Yeah.
And so just so many scenes of just baby talk and like you can feel it. It's like RoboCop 3, how you can just feel like it's been like toned down from what it once was. And I know the first one's like it's not like an R-rated comedy or something like that, but they were able to it does feel watered down and kidified. You know what I mean? They added Slimer in there just for no reason. I like the little tidbit you gave, but overall, yeah, I think I don't like the movie. It's partially I'm so angry about. I'm not so angry, but I'm more angry about it because I thought that I really liked this movie, and I defended it for years as like it always up until I watched it today. I was like, I feel like people don't like this movie. Why? Like I always loved number 2. I think it's better than the first one in my head, but I just hadn't seen it fully in like 15, 20 years. And so because of that, I have like I'm more like angry about it. You know what I mean?
It didn't. You had expectations that were not met because you had
Yes.
seen this so long ago. Yeah, for sure.
And I seem to like it before, and I think that maybe I could reevaluate this movie again after this viewing, after taking it down my expectations so much.
Yeah.
Maybe in like a few years, if I watch it again, I might be able to level out that feeling.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm kind of just like shocked that I thought that way, and kind of yeah. Anyway, what did you think?
Yeah, I don't know. It was fun coming back and seeing this after having seen it so many times on TV and like kind of growing up. I'm not going to come out quite as hard against this movie as you are. I did not care for the ending. I thought that it was too campy, too silly, too childish, too stupid. And I thought that they could have done better with. I thought the Vigo as a bad guy is a great bad guy, and then I liked the Dr. Poaz that's kind of just this weird little like creep that's kind of he's such a good little minion. Like you said, they brought everything back, and I thought that they did a good job of giving Dana stuff to do. They did a good job of giving Rick Moranis stuff to do. They still didn't really give Winston much to do in this movie, but
They didn't give any of the Ghostbusters anything to do.
Oh, well, him in particular, though, like even in the court scene, he wasn't one of the ones fighting the ghosts. It's the other three dudes.
Yeah.
And they just kind of like left him out of a lot of the action pieces. But I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I think like if this hadn't been the only other, I think if they'd made like a Ghostbusters 3 with this cast, I think that this one in a trilogy or in like a bigger thing would make more sense. But yeah, it just kind of like, as the only follow up from this group of actors and creators to the first one, it I'm sure they were under a ton of pressure to make this thing incredible, and it doesn't quite reach incredible for me. It's just it's less than the sum of its parts. The people involved in this movie are so incredible, and it's less than the sum of those parts.
That's perfect. Exactly. Yeah, it's just honestly like. I think I only laughed like once or twice, like where it actually got me. The rest of the humor just seems very like I said, kind of ho hum. Oh, that's cute. Oh, that's fun. Like not like actually funny. And I don't know. I don't know what happened. I also think the story is like the whole thing with like the positive vibes is pretty dumb.
Yeah, I think that's really dumb.
Yeah. I mean, I could see a way that something like that could work, but it makes it feel so in a movie that they've already like made it feel so kiddie and kid friendly. That makes it so more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the moral here is be nice to each other, which is like
we're all gonna sing at the same time and make the bad guys go away. Yeah, so I don't know what they were thinking with the plot here. I feel like they just got off on the wrong foot from the start.
I do want you to be careful here, Tanner. Don't be too hard on this movie because we're about to watch 3 Ghostbusters movies that have very little Bill Murray in them.
Well, that's okay because he wasn't funny in this movie.
Okay, fair enough.
I think I don't know if I said this fully before, but he went from like having everything to do and all the funny lines and being just such a standout, amazing part of the first movie to having very little funny lines. I don't know. It's like they consciously tried to like take him back at like maybe like spread out the jokes or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, it just wasn't landing for me at all.
That's fair.
And so kiddie. Anyways, Chris, do you have a MVP or any beef with this movie that we haven't talked about?
I mean, I feel like we've hit the beef. MVP. I mean, I feel like they recognized that they had a bunch of like rock stars in secondary roles, and they did a good job of bringing all those people back. More Rick Moranis in this movie is always going to be a good thing. But MVP.
Yeah, I think mine is Rick Moranis.
Is just fully Rick Moranis is your MVP on this one.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
He's still super funny. Got some of the best lines. Yeah, I liked him.
Great. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they gave Harold Ramis more to do in this movie. So Egon, I think, was a little better character in this one for me than the first one. So maybe him, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I think Rick Moranis is a great pick.
Yeah.
Any other beef for you?
No, just everything that I've been ranting
that we've already
about.
gone over. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really think of it. Nothing stands out as like a funny moment to me. I think I liked the little bits of haunting stuff where they brought like the guys in the electric chair out, the Titanic thing, that coat that came alive. So there's a lot of good like bits with the haunting, even like the tub that kind of comes to life.
I like that tub scene a lot. Yeah.
So there's some fun stuff in it for sure. But overall, just I guess annoyed of the kidification of it all. I would say this movie, the timeless or time capsule thing, I don't know if it even fits for this. I guess it's still timeless. Really, it's not a time capsule. Or is that question irrelevant?
I don't know. I mean, how are we viewing this? I feel like you could make the argument that this is a time capsule because it's like a who's who of actors in the 1980s. And, you know, it kind of like came on the scene right around this big push around merchandising movies. And it really defines that in a lot of ways for me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. To me, this one is more of a time capsule than a timeless classic.
For sure.
But
do you think they, based on just the movie, should they have made another sequel to it?
I mean, I think they certainly could have. Like, this is like, this movie kind of saved Columbia Pictures when it came out because I'm reading this in the book. This was like they were putting all of their eggs in this basket to be successful. But Bill Murray didn't want to do it, and like I think if without him, do you bring in a whole new group of people, or do you what do you do from there? Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see if they could have like made a better sequel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every time around, like learn from some of their mistakes and but the movie financially I think warranted a sequel. I mean, it was considered a failure. Like they consider it like a box office failure, but the budget was 40 million and it made 215 million. So I think it's a failure from an expectation point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, it seems like it made a bunch of profits still, even with like marketing included, and then VHS sales after. I'm sure it's still a profitable movie, but considered a failure. But that's because it wasn't as good. I think people like word got out pretty quickly that this isn't as good as we wanted.
Well, there's another reason that it didn't make quite as much money too. It was supposed to come out on June 23rd. And then it was announced that the Batman movie was going to come out on that day. And so they bumped it forward a week. And then, so it only had 1 week at the box office before Batman came out, like the original Tim Burton movie. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's bad timing.
Really bad timing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we didn't get the sequel. That's okay.
Yep.
Let's see. What other tidbits do I got here?
And
Chris,
honestly, like at this point, I mean, we'll watch the Lady Ghostbusters next week, but like I feel okay with different characters carrying the proton packs at this point because I feel like we've seen what Bill Murray's going to do for 2 movies, and both you and I got a little tired of that by the end of this movie. Except
I do know that they're in this newest sequel, some of them at least.
Yeah, but not in. Bill Murray isn't 80s Bill Murray anymore. You know what I mean? It's a totally different thing.
80-year-old Bill Murray.
Yes, exactly.
Did you listen to this song at all? So the Bobby Brown song?
No, 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 no.
Well, it's in the credits, so I guess you did hear it. Probably it's in the movie a few times. "On Our Own" by Bobby Brown was a hit song. It was a #1 hit. If anyone can remember that song, more power to you. But yeah, they had another #1 hit for this movie, so that's a thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't really have much on that. I was just curious if you'd done any deep dives on Bobby Brown. Of course, disgraced.
At the time that this came out, they did mention Bobby Brown. He was apparently like the up and coming R&B artist, and they did not offer anything to Ray Parker Jr. They tried to bet all their money on like an upcoming R&B star, and so they picked Bobby Brown to do a couple songs. Yeah,
yeah. It says he's the pioneers of New Jack Swing, which is the kind of music that he makes. New Jack or swing beat? I don't know.
Do you like New Jack Swing or Old Jack Swing better? When you're busting,
I'm more of an Old Jack Swing kind of guy.
Old Jack Swing guy. Yeah, I had you pegged for that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The only other tidbit I have, we never talked about the Neil Cierga Bustin' song last week. You know, there's a lot of the we make a lot of bustin' jokes. Bustin' makes me feel good. I know it's in the trailer for the newest movie, but that notion to me had never clicked until like 10 years ago when this Neil Cierga made this mashup song or re-edited version of the Ghostbusters theme song, just called Bustin', and it just kind of retools it, and it's Bustin' makes me feel good is like the chorus of the song.
Yeah,
and
instead of a line at the very end of the Ray Parker Jr. song.
Right. And I don't think without that song, I would even be talking about it like busting in that like the sexualized version of it. I really do think that song is, I mean, it was a big viral hit at the time. I think that's the reason we even make those jokes. Why it even like became synonymous with that. For better or for worse. And then the last thing I wanted to, before we get into the milk, so you know the logo for the Ghostbusters is like the ghost with the red circle and the line through it, right?
Oh yeah, iconic.
And in this one, you got the same thing, but with the #2. But growing up, I had another one that was very iconic to me, a version of that logo.
Really?
So there was this car that would drive around town. It was like a really small town that I grew up in. Somebody had painted their car. I don't think it was a hearse, but it was like kind of an older, maybe 60s car that they had repainted white and red and had the Ghostbusters logo on the car. And it was like part of the town kind of thing. The only variation, though, is that this ghost had tits.
Yeah. Perfect. It's called art, Tanner. You just don't get it.
I mean, I just had this like this memory when I was watching this. When I saw the other logo, I was like, "Oh my god!" I have a strong memory from a child of like seeing this Ghostbusters with tits car around town. Is that crazy or what?
No, it's not crazy. Well, it's crazy that car exists, but it's not crazy that you remember it because that car sounds crazy.
Is it not crazy that somebody drove that around?
That is crazy without a doubt. Yes.
This was like their car that they would drive around town. I wish I had some
pick up their kids from soccer practice in the ghost titty car.
This is one of those things that it's like I got to ask people I grew up with, like, hey, do you remember this car?
Yeah.
Or did I just dream this in some kind of fever dream?
Yeah.
No, but yeah, anyway, I'm going to try to dig up some old photos. I don't think I'll find it, but I'm going to scour the internet for this car.
Well, if you do, send them my way. I want to see this car.
All right, let's get into the milk. So this is the part of the show where we talk about other IP in the Ghostbusters franchise. Chris, do you want to start? Should I start? What do you got?
Yeah, let me see. I'm sorry, I'm on my phone right now, and that's where I have the name of the book that I read.
Yeah, we had some technical difficulties earlier, so
we're
doing things a bit different.
Do
you want me to start then?
Yeah, can you do that just so I can get this pulled up?
Yeah, so I played 4 more video games.
4?
4, and I'm only like maybe halfway through the video games that they have. I played like 4 last week. No, maybe only 2. There's a lot more. If you count all the mobile games, which I'm not going to play, they have a ton. And, there's like Ghostbusters Pinball, but you have to buy like, they have like a pinball game you can buy, and then you also buy the DLC for like all these franchises to get more pinball machines.
Okay.
So stuff like that, I'm not going to probably play. But I'm still doing the retro games. So the first one I played was also just called Ghostbusters. But it came out after this movie in 1990 for the Sega Genesis. So this is just kind of like a general Ghostbusters game. I wouldn't call it, it's not like based on one of the movies. It's just called Ghostbusters. And it's a little side-scrolling platforming game. You got little funny versions of all the Ghostbuster characters that you can be. And this one was probably the best of all 6 that I've played so far. Because you can like upgrade your weaponry every time you go into like a level, and you can try to catch this ghost, and then you fight a boss at the end. If you catch the ghost, you get more money for more upgrades. And you can get like triple shots. You can like increase your damage. You can do all these things like RPG light, if you want to call it that. Just like, so that one kind of got me hooked on the upgrading your weaponry and stuff like that, and getting better as you go, which is fun. Unlike some of these other games that I played where, it's like an old school NES game that when you die, you start back at the beginning, every time. And they're like, there you got people popping out of you around corners and killing you unfairly, and you have to start over again. Like I don't have that kind of time in my life to play all that. Anyway, this game was like a nice breath of fresh air. And it was pretty fun. That's Ghostbusters for the Sega Genesis. So then I played another one. This one was just called Ghostbusters 2 for the NES, and it's horrible. It's probably the worst one of it. It's like a side-scrolling game again. You're shooting slime. I don't know why you're shooting like green slime, but that's what it was. And you're
that's not even in the movie.
You're dodging spiders and statue heads. So I guess that's the connection, the statue head. And then you're killing Slimers. You're killing just like there's this thousands of Slimers. So you're walking around there. And then once you beat the first part of the level, there's a car scene, a car chase scene, kind of like the one I described last week with the other NES game. These are getting confusing but you can see me play all these in order on YouTube here. But so you get in this car and it's impossible. Like I'm sure it is possible, but it's very hard. You have to like jump over a cliff and get these power-ups, and it's just grueling is the word. Although I gave this one points for having the most accurate music.
Okay.
Because every one of these games like has the Ghostbusters theme song, but it's a little bit different. Like they go up or down a key, I feel like, at the end of each line. Like it's or like it's like slightly tweaked.
It's
and I don't know if that was intentional or not, but or just maybe a limitation in the technology.
Sure.
Anyways, moving through here, I played another one, but this one is called New Ghostbusters 2. Came out the same year as the one I'm just talking about. For the same system, also NES, but I think only in Europe or something, but they made a whole separate game called New Ghostbusters 2. And this one is a totally different
franchise
game.
Has so much shit in it. It's so funny to listen to.
There's like 3 games called Ghostbusters, 2 games called Ghostbusters 2 that are all completely different. And I've got a really wild one coming up here in a second.
Oh, please, yeah.
So yeah, this one also, New Ghostbusters 2. This one you pick 2 people, and it's kind of a top-down, looks like A Link to the Past or Earthbound little sprites.
Yep.
You pick 2 of them. One of them busts the guys with the electron proton pack, and the other one comes over and catches it. So this one is actually like you're going around stopping and catching ghosts. And it's kind of like an automatic thing. Like the second player, it's not a 2-player game, but the second character comes over and like catches it while you're holding the thing. It's kind of fun. Yeah, I played it for a little bit, but it's again pretty difficult with all the cheap hits from bad guys.
Yeah.
So that's new Ghostbusters 2. Not to be confused with Ghostbusters 2. And the last one I played here. Oh
I'm
boy.
praying that it's Ghostbusters at Universal Studios.
No, unfortunately. It's I don't think it's a Universal movie. I could be wrong. No,
it's Columbia. It's not.
Columbia, yes.
Yep.
So this one is called The Real Ghostbusters, which I played last week, one called The Real Ghostbusters. So it's again the same title.
Yeah.
But this one came out for Game Boy in 1993, so 3 years after it. But that's still when the show was going on, I believe, or maybe it's after the show had been done. Actually, yeah, the show had already been canceled. But 1993, it's for Game Boy. So the crazy part about this one is the game's premise is you go around just like breaking blocks on the ground. I don't know if you ever played Lode Runner, but similar to that, where you break the ground and you collect little stars, and then you open up pathways to doors and you get keys, and it's just like kind of a little puzzle thing. And there's like 50 puzzles, and that's the whole game. Right. But the funny part about it is in Japan, it's the exact same game, but with Mickey Mouse as the sprite instead of the Ghostbusters character. So they literally, and then in Europe, they released a version of it with Garfield as the main character instead of
what?
Ghostbusters.
So this is literally, there's no Ghostbusters content here. They just stuck a Ghostbusters avatar over a little puzzle game that they had already put different avatars on in different regions.
Yes. So 3 different versions of the exact same, literally beat for beat. There might be a few little things where they added in like a ghostly looking or Ghostbusters themed like item or something like that, but very minor details. And even then, like it's like the opening theme song is in there. So that's different. Like the music is different, and then the little character is different. But other than that, there's a Mickey Mouse and a Garfield version of the exact same game.
Unbelievable.
Which is pretty crazy, and I don't understand why they did this. But the other thing is
they did it for money. This is the ultimate cash cow franchise, dude. They did it for money.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the last tidbit on this is that this game was a direct lift of a Commodore 64 game called PP Hammer and His Pneumatic Weapon.
PP Hammer and His Pneumatic Weapon.
PP Hammer, yeah. P period Hammer.
Uh-huh.
And so I played this game too, I had to check it out. And they literally like it came out a couple years earlier. It was like kind of not a well-known game or anything, but they literally like lifted the puzzle structure level to level. They basically ripped it off completely and stole it. And then they also attached 3 different characters to the game.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's insane. I thought it was pretty crazy, but I also thought it was funny because it's PP Hammer and his.
It's a hilarious name. It starts with PP.
I call my dick my PP Hammer. No, yeah. So that's the legend of the Real Ghostbusters video game for Game Boy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's totally ripped off and has 3 different cash cow characters.
Just attached to it. Yep. It's great. Yeah.
And I did beat that one, but only because it was actually kind of fun little puzzle game. You know, I liked it. Maybe my favorite one of all, actually. And I used a passcode to get to the end and finish the game just because I was curious.
Do you think it would have been more fun if you were playing as Garfield and just like eating lasagna your way through that game?
I wish. I mean, there isn't any lasagna, though. It's just the Garfield character swapped out, I believe. Isn't that you
I
sound
can
so
dream.
disappointed?
Yeah.
Like, oh, no lasagna. Anyway, those are the games I got. Yeah. Again, you could check me out playing those online. Minimal commentary is kind of what I do. I play along with it. It's not like a full YouTubing star. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like my face is on there commenting throughout the whole game. But it's more of a showcase.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris,
Love it,
what
man.
do you got? Yeah.
Well, yeah, this week I went a little different this week. Normally I try and find like milk, and I don't know if what I read or the book that I'm working on right now, I don't know if it counts as milk because it's more like an account of the making of the Ghostbusters franchise. It's called A Convenient Parallel Dimension: How Ghostbusters Slimed Us Forever. It's by a writer named James Green Jr. Everything that I'm about to say is from his book.
So don't hold you accountable if it's wrong.
If it's wrong, because I feel like I remembered a fact about the Gremlins earlier, which we looked up and was not true. So maybe this book is a bunch of bullshit, but I honestly enjoyed reading it more than watching Ghostbusters 2. It's really fascinating to me how connected Harold Ramis and Ivan Reitman and Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd, and just like how connected the 80s comedy scene was. And so like, Ramis came up through SCTV and he wrote this movie called Freshman Year, which turned into Animal House. And at the time, Ivan Reitman was like obsessed with making a movie for National Lampoon, and he was calling them every week to try and let him make a movie. And so he ended up being able to produce this script written by Ramis, who he didn't really know before, called Animal House. But they didn't trust Reitman to direct it, which pissed him off because he hadn't had a lot of directing experience at that point. So they brought in John Landis. And then Reitman's career kind of took off when he got Bill Murray to come do Meatballs, which was his first directorial debut. And so like, it was just really interesting to me how these were all connected. And Dan Aykroyd had the idea for the movie, and it was going to be another John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd movie because they were doing everything together at this point. And then obviously Belushi died, and they had some anecdote in the book about how Slimer was supposed to be based on him. Slimer was originally called Onion Head in the...
Yeah, I said that last week.
Yeah. But they had a story in the book about how the artist was like trying to figure out Slimer and doing lines of cocaine off of a picture of John Belushi, which was like...
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, right. Just very, very nice, kind little thing. Yeah, I'm trying to think what other. There was some interesting stuff about early SNL in there, which I always think is interesting.
Sure.
And let me see, what else did I write down here?
No.
Harold Ramis also wrote and directed Caddyshack, and when it came out, it was like it wasn't seen as super successful because it came out the same summer as Airplane, and Airplane was like this groundbreaking new way to do parody and it was supposed to be like the next thing for comedy, and everybody saw Caddyshack at the time as being like a second run movie. So much so that one of the main producers, the guy who kind of connected all these people to National Lampoon, mysteriously disappeared, and it might have been a suicide, or he's mysteriously died, and it might have been a suicide. And then it said that National Lampoon was never quite the same after that. And we had talked about that on this show before. And so like, Airplane might have been a big part of the reason why National Lampoon kind of fell apart as a movie house.
You're saying, wait, which part did we talk about?
Oh, just how National Lampoon used to make like all of the most famous comedies, and lately they do the shittiest comedies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're talking about the guy who died, right?
Yeah, he was like one of the main producers on Caddyshack, and it was not well received at the time. And the cutting edge comedy that summer was Airplane with Leslie Nielsen, and so they kind of thought their run was over. And this guy mysteriously died, and some people think it was a suicide.
Douglas Kenny, I believe.
Yeah.
And they made a movie about him and about National Lampoon's at the time.
Okay.
It's a pretty good movie. I think Will Forte's in it.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It's called A Futile and Stupid Gesture. And he plays Doug Kinney in that movie. And yeah, I think it's alluded to that he kills himself at the end of that one.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, I guess nobody knew for sure, right? I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, it didn't identify conclusively that it was a suicide in the book that I read. It was kind of just like they found him at the bottom of a cliff in Hawaii, and that was the end of the golden age of National Lampoon.
This movie, by the way, let's see. They got oh god, where did it go? I was trying to find the actors that play people here. Chevy Chase is played by Joel McHale. There's a lot of funny periods. I was trying to see who played Bill Murray in this movie, but all these actors are represented in this movie, which is kind of cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something to check out. Yeah.
Yeah. But the end to that story, it kind of looped back around in the book. Like, then a few years later, Abrams Zucker, the team that made Airplane, made this movie Top Secret, and Top Secret got its ass kicked by Ghostbusters, the first one, because it came out the same summer, and it got pushed to like accommodate, or I think Ghostbusters 2, it came out like the same summer. And so like this National Lampoon group of like Reitman and Harold Ramis, who had this big like loss, that kind of is attributed to Airplane, kind of came back and they got their comeuppance in through the Ghostbusters franchise.
So what you're presenting is there is a war between the Lampoon guys and the Zucker brothers guys.
Yes,
the Abrams Zucker connection.
I don't know if there was actually a war, but it was like a competition for sure for like the voice of mainstream comedy in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting to read about all the people that they considered as Ghostbusters, because Aykroyd obviously wanted John Belushi, but they also talked about Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, Michael Keaton, Chevy Chase as like possible extra Ghostbusters. And when Dan Aykroyd showed the script to Reitman didn't like it, so he suggested Harold Ramis as a co-writer, because Harold Ramis had also directed and written National Lampoon's Vacation and Caddyshack and Animal House, and so they kind of, as a way to make the script better and also bring in this guy, like that's one of the reasons Ramis ended up on board. And then, yeah, just a lot of little facts. Is this fun for you to listen to, or am I like wasting time?
I like
here?
it. I like this, the Lampoon connection stuff.
Yeah, like the Lampoon stuff, I don't really know the history of. I feel like SNL has been canonized so much, but Lampoon not quite as much. Yeah. And then apparently Bill Murray, after the real Ghostbusters, that the animated show was like such a cultural phenomenon for kids. They were trying to include Slimer and all this stuff, but Bill Murray didn't like they hired this guy named Lorenzo Music to do the voice of
Lorenzo Music.
That's his name. And he's most famous for being the voice of Garfield, which is fucking hilarious because Bill Murray became the voice of Garfield like 15 years later when they made that horrible Garfield movie in the 90s.
Also, they made that video game of the real Ghostbusters based on the cartoon, but also there's the Garfield version.
Yeah.
A lot of weird connections.
And then it was also kind of sad. It said that Ernie Hudson wanted to play himself. He wanted to play Winston on the cartoon show, but they cast Arsenio Hall instead because they thought he was sillier. So they didn't even cast Ernie Hudson in the show.
He was willing to be.
Yes, he was willing to do the voice. None of the other actors wanted anything to do with it.
Right.
So I think I misspoke last week. They changed Harold Ramis's hair to yellow because they didn't want it had to be a different character because those guys didn't want anything to do with this cartoon. So anyway, just a lot of like little bits like that. Columbia apparently got bought by Coca-Cola, and the Coca-Cola was real fast and loose with their money at the start. And Columbia was in a lot of trouble. They had Ishtar had come out the summer before Ghostbusters 2, and also this Bill Cosby 007 movie called Leonard Part 6, which only made $1.3 million against a $40 million budget. So I don't know if you've heard of that movie, but it sounded like a great thing for Bad Movie Monday.
Oh, Ishtar?
No, it's called Leonard Part 6. It's a Bill
Oh,
Cosby
yes.
007 movie.
We've watched that trailer before.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Yeah.
And then the last little bit here. So in between the Ghostbusters movie, Ivan Reitman went and did Twins, which I thought was kind of cool. The Schwarzenegger movie. And while he was there, Aykroyd was working on drafts, and the first draft of Ghostbusters 2 had Dana living in Scotland, touring with her orchestra, and there was a druid ring that the Ghostbusters fell through, and they ended up trapped in a tube for 3 days. That was all part of his original script, which
sounds like
insane.
a better movie.
It might be better. Yeah.
I think, because instead of they rehashed it, they did the annoying rehash of a sequel kind of thing. It's
sure.
like almost the same structure. They should have done that where it's a completely different scenario and the Ghostbusters are there, right?
Sure.
Anyway.
Yeah. Cool. So anyway, not the normal milk. I know, there's plenty of books to get to. There's a cookbook. There's
so much legendary stuff, so much information though. That's great.
And it was so much fun for me to read because, I don't think I really appreciated how influential Harold Ramis especially was, or Ivan Reitman. Those guys are just always names that are associated with Ghostbusters to me, and not comedy legends, which is really what it seems like they are. It's been pretty cool reading through this, and I enjoyed the book more this week than I enjoyed the movie, if I'm being honest with you. So we'll see. It's supposed to follow the franchise all the way through the end, so I'm hoping I can do this and then plug in some other stuff the next couple weeks. So
wait, the franchise to the end,
sorry, this book is 400 pages long, and I'm a third of the way through it, and so I think it follows through the newer legacy sequels that we're gonna get into these next couple
did
weeks.
It just come out?
Yeah, I think a couple
years ago.
Yeah, within the last 10 years.
Okay,
I'm not sure the actual date, but
does it have the Lady Ghostbusters in it?
I hope so.
Okay. Cool. Well, yeah, that's I've always loved and followed the Ramis and the National Lampoon movies and all that stuff. I watched, like I said, that movie about these guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that stuff's super interesting, and
me too.
They've got a ton of great movies throughout. I loved Caddyshack. So I like it. Anything else you want to touch on?
That's all I've got this week. Do you got anything else for us before we sign off here?
That's it. Yeah.
Cool.
Make sure to take the survey this week for Ghostbusters 2. And we will read your funny lines, your hilarious jokes on our show next time when we watch Ghostbusters Answer the Call.
Ooh!
Or just called Ghostbusters, but I guess they added a new tag on it. The Lady Ghostbusters, if you will.
Mm-hmm. We'll be chatting that next week. So, take our survey, and we will check in with you guys next week.
Have a good one. See you, Chris.
Bye.